Welcome to Watch the Booker Man and to the second week of build to the biggest show in Impact Wrestling history, Slammiversary 10. Now we open the show with the second King of the Mountain tag team qualifiers. So last week the Motor City Machine Guns were confirmed as the first team who will be challenging Bryan Danielson and Desmond Wolfe for those titles at the big pay-per-view. Steen and London now defeat Bad Influence, Beer Money and Team Canada in 14 minutes and 7. It is Paul London who, after a package piledriver from Kevin Steen, follows up with a shooting star press to Tyson Dukes, who is pinned for the 1-2-3. Now again, it's the lower ranked and the team with the worst win-loss record that are defeated. Makes sense. And of course we've got the four members of Fortune who happen to face off with each other and unfortunately cannot get the job done. Paul London slowed by injury somewhat. He does also work for PWG and that's where he picked up his injury, so maybe building the match around him not being involved quite so much. I did have the thought to put Roderick Strong in instead, but then there's no established tag team between Steen and Strong, so it didn't make sense to me, and I want Paul London to compete at Slammiversary because he's been somebody I've really enjoyed booking throughout the save. Rude doing really well, as did Storm, but it is Steen and London who make it through to the King of the Mountain qualifier match, and they stand tall as the cameras are seen approaching Colt Cabana and El Generico. Generico is in action against Roderick Strong later tonight, but Jeremy Borash wants to know, are the reports true? Have they turned down the chance to take part in a qualification match for this King of the Mountain match at Slammiversary? It seems almost unfathomable to Jeremy Borash that they could turn down a potential championship opportunity, but Cabana just looks to El Generico and Generico shrugs. Cabana begins to talk about the decision, but he's distracted by what he's seeing on the screen. He stops mid-sentence and he says to Cabana, "We can't let them beat us." He points at Steen and London celebrating. They have caused nothing but trouble for Cabana and Generico for months and months, and he's showing a more serious side in attempting to fire up El Generico. They have to take their spot next week, and of course from Colt Cabana's perhaps selfish interest, this would be the biggest match that he'd ever competed in the company, so it would mean so much for him to have that opportunity. But as a team, they need to stop the Young Bucks so that they can beat Steen and London and become the tag team champions. He hopes that this will rally El Generico, but Cabana's words seem to have no effect as the former X Division champion shakes his head and walks away. Losing that X Division championship has done a huge number on the confidence of El Generico, and it seems that he is not ready to return to championship contention just yet. Returning to ringside, we get an underwhelming segment from AJ Styles, and probably I should have scripted him given he doesn't do such a good job, but the commentators are putting over his recent struggles as he makes his way down to the ring. Styles says that he's sure everybody saw his words from After Sacrifice that aired last week, and he's had time to think things over. Truthfully, he feels exactly the same as he did just moments after that defeat to Brody Lee at the pay-per-view. AJ Styles talks about his history with this company, having appeared on the very first show back when this company was TNA, and he has appeared on every anniversary show since then, the only man who can say he's done that. But that was total non-stop action, and this year, for the first time, it is Impact Wrestling that presents Slammiversary. 2012 was a fresh start and a clean slate for whoever was good enough to step up to the plate. He said that during his very first appearance on Impact Wrestling, but the truth is, he has fallen well short. Meanwhile, he sat home last week and saw Brock Lesnar strong-arm his way into a world title match. AJ Styles says that he will be at Slammiversary. He wouldn't miss the biggest show in Impact Wrestling history for the world, but he just doesn't see where he fits in terms of a match. Part of him even hoped that coming out right now might spark something, somebody coming out interrupting him, starting something, setting something off for the pay-per-view, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen either. AJ Styles puts his head down, a dejected figure, no closer to working out the solution to his current situation. He does gain heat to his own storyline, but it's not good enough, and hopefully the next couple of weeks of build to AJ Styles' storyline will see us step up the heat. Heading to footage from earlier today, Paul Heyman is shown arriving at the building. He reminds fans of the ultimatum that was laid out to Jeff Hardy last week: either show up and accept Brock Lesnar's Slammiversary challenge, or vacate the Impact World Championship. According to Paul's sources, there is yet to be any sign of Jeff Hardy at the building tonight, but It's early in the day, so Paul Heyman's going to wait a little bit longer before declaring anything one way or the other and losing heat to storylines again. But I do think our other segment in this storyline should be quite a bit better than that. Hamada then defeats ODB, having requested any woman on US soil who she hasn't beaten during this run, and ODB makes her return to Impact Wrestling. It's only a one-night deal, although her gimmick does get a very good rating, and the 49 isn't that far off the woman that we've been pushing for months and months. So I don't know what that tells you about the Hamada push, but she defeats ODB in 4 minutes and 24 with the Hamada driver. After the match, the Impact Knockouts champion stands over her patriotic opponent, and I forgot to mention this, but ODB came out with a US flag. Given the recent disparaging words of Hamada, she then turns her attention to that very flag, and before she could do anything but put her hands on it, Mickie James storms down to the ring. She is furious. She takes a microphone from ringside and says that she has a hell of a lot to be pissed off about right now. Madison Rayne and Tara are going to have to wait for a while, however, because what Hamada's doing is more than just a personal issue. She tells her not to dare do anything to the flag. Hamada then hands the flag to Mickie James, making it clear that she has no intention to disgrace the flag. She doesn't need to disgrace the flag. Mickie disgraces this country herself. Just like ODB, you don't deserve to share the ring with the Knockouts champion. Hamada then leaves the ring, heading up the ramp. Mickie says she may not have had the best of times recently, but her issues began with Hamada all those weeks ago, and one way or another they are going to end with her too. Now I actually quite like the idea of the segment ending with Hamada saying you don't deserve to share the ring with me, and then Mickie just having the US flag in her hands. I added that bit, but then when I've played it out, I kind of wish we didn't have that bit at the end, and that'd have been a separate promo from Mickie James. But what can you do? Sometimes things don't play out as you'd imagined them. We then get footage from the brawl between Gail Kim and Awesome Kong last week, just moments after Gail Kim had returned to Impact Wrestling. This week she is in a much more calm setting as Mike Tenay conducts a sit-down interview with her, and it's more asking why exactly she had to come out and call out Awesome Kong. Gail Kim says that Mike knows better than anybody how dangerous Awesome Kong is. He's sat at ringside and seen her destroy more women than anybody else in the history of this company. And while Gail Kim wasn't in this company, she sees that Awesome Kong only got more dangerous and more dominant. However, after lockdown, we have seen a new, more violent, vicious bully come out of Awesome Kong. And while that night is bad for Gail because she lost the Knockouts Championship, for the entire Knockouts division, the fact that something switched in the head of Awesome Kong is all the more concerning. Gail sees it in the eyes of Awesome Kong. She saw it last week, and this Awesome Kong, she doesn't know if there's anybody who can stop her, apart from maybe one person. Gail says that she has had some great opponents and great rivalries in her time in this company, but nobody has brought out of her like Awesome Kong did. Gail says that the solution to this is pretty simple. Gail Kim challenges Awesome Kong to a one-on-one match at Slammiversary, the first time that they have shared the ring in 4 years, and she thinks that the only way to stop this rampage before it's too late and it takes over the entire company is for Gail Kim to be the one to stop it. So a good promo from Gail Kim there. Happy with that as we go into what is sort of an unofficial X Division Championship #1 contenders match. Shelton Benjamin came back. He wanted the shot at Charlie Haas, but Amazing Red, obviously justified in being cheated out of the pay-per-view. He doesn't just think that somebody can return and get a title shot, and the main reason, I just think this would be a really great match. High spots rated, of course, which means we get a 62 from Amazing Red, but a 75 from the victor, Shelton Benjamin, and I want to see some kind of high-flying spot into a super kick that sees Shelton Benjamin pick up the win, so adopting the super kick as we have seen him do a couple of times, I think, in AEW. Following his victory over Amazing Red, Shelton Benjamin, sign of respect, offers a handshake to his opponent. They may have crossed words last week, but there was no sort of personal animosity really. However, as the two men exchange words, Amazing Red is taken out from behind by Adam Pearce, as Shelton Benjamin is simultaneously hit with the X Division Championship by Charlie Haas, a clearly coordinated attack, and while Pearce drags Red to the outside and hits him with that powerbomb into the barricade again, Charlie Haas hits a series of stiff forearm shots into the face of Shelton Benjamin, leaving his former partner in a state at ringside, the first time that these two have been in the ring since Shelton Benjamin's injury at Destination X. Jim Cornette, who had joined Charlie Haas at ringside, looks a little bit torn by what is going on. When he's watched Charlie Haas take on these attacks previously, he's encouraged him. This time he isn't, maybe because of the history that he has with Shelton Benjamin, demanding that Jim gets him a microphone. Cornette probably still scared enough to do what Haas says. He says that Benjamin may have earned that title shot at Slammiversary with his win tonight, but there is no guarantee that he's going to make it to that event. So following up a really good match with not that good of a segment, but I do think that it's good for the storyline, and unfortunately having Pearce and Red in it and rated on their overness probably hurt things a little bit, but Cornette and Haas improvising and Benjamin looking good, so green notes for the guys who are actually going to be involved in the Slammiversary match. I'm not going to complain too much. We then return from the break where Jim Cornette is shown in the back. There's no Charlie Haas, and he is approaching the medical room where Shelton Benjamin has just been taken to be checked over. Cornette enters the room and Shelton looks like he's going to go for him, but Cornette says that he had nothing to do with what happened out there. He goes back with both of these men, and quite frankly, he doesn't want to have to pick a side. Shelton says that after what Charlie's done to him a couple of months ago and his actions since, it's too late for Cornette to try and play mediator. He is, however, stopped from confronting Jim Cornette by the medics, who suggest he doesn't do anything physical right now. Jim Cornette says that for all the fighting between them, he thinks that Charlie and Shelton need to talk. There's been a lot between the two of them, a lot of violence, a lot of aggression, a lot of anger, but there's still not really been an attempt to understand why this has happened. He's spoken with Charlie and he has agreed to do it. Next week, Jim wants to facilitate a conversation between these two men before their match at Slammiversary. Shelton's kind of smirking at this. After all this, they want to talk, but Benjamin agrees to do it. He'll hear out Charlie Haas, because as much as he's ready to beat his ass and take his title, there is still that part of him that wants to fully understand why Charlie Haas is doing what he's doing. We then get an angry American Wolves defeating Future Shock in 3 minutes and 32, two teams who were unsuccessful in last week's King of the Mountain tag team match qualifier. But the reason American Wolves lost last week was the Kings of Wrestling, whereas Future Shock were the ones pinned. It's only 3 minutes and it is aggressive and it is dominant from Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, who continue to be two of the very best performers. It's not that good of a segment rating, but 87 and 92, these are two of our very best in-ring performers. The angry American Wolves then stand tall following the match, Davey Richards grabbing a microphone and calling out the Kings of Wrestling. If Chris and Claudio think that they are going to make it to their King of the Mountain qualifier next week, they are quite simply out of their minds. Instead of coming out from the back, the New Age Originals are shown on the screen. They suggest that Austin Aries gets down to the ring and joins his boys right now. The camera then pulls back to see Big Rig Brody Lee hung up by chains in the back, bloodied, having been the victim of a revenge attack. Now, it might seem a little bit unfair that three of them have ganged up on Brody Lee, but the fact of the matter is he has done some pretty vile things to them. He crushed Chris Hero's head, he threw Tyler Black off the stage, and he was responsible for Claudio Castagnoli being out as well. We then cut back to the ring where Aries has ran down to the ring. He wasn't coming finding the Originals on his own. The three men are concerned about what they've just seen. This dominant figure Brody Lee that we've built up in the last few weeks, particularly but also over the last few months, as an almost unstoppable monster. We now see that even he is in a vulnerable position, and we're also sort of harkering back to the New Age Originals. They've kind of cleaned up their image in the last 6 months, but don't forget who they were when they came in. Their debut was putting a spike into the head of Sting, of laying out Jeff Hardy. They put wrestlers on the shelf, and their violent nature clearly hasn't gone anywhere. They may be good guys now on screen, but they are very far from being good people. Tyler Black, Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli then march down to the ring, a huge brawl breaking out. It spills out of the ring, up the ramp and into the crowd, and it appears that the two trios will fight off into the night, two of them going down the side of the stage, 2 of them into the crowd, and the other 2, God knows where they go. We're trying to follow the action, but there is just so much going on. Now, it's not a good segment rating, but these are some of the guys who we've pushed hardest, I would say, in the course of this save, and for me, their rivalry coming to a head with Slammiversary around the corner, that's something that I'm very, very keen on. See, this is what I should have done. I should have cut that last bit off the Mickie James thing and had her speak in the back about this. But Mickie James says that as much as she hates what Hamada has been saying, she is right about one thing. Mickie hasn't proved herself worthy of an Impact Knockouts title shot recently. But also, according to Hamada, nobody is worthy. So does Hamada think that she gets the night off at Slammiversary? Mickie doesn't think so. So Mickie has a challenge for Hamada. She's spoken to management and they are willing to make this happen. Name a competitor from any company, any country in the world, and Impact Wrestling will do whatever it takes to bring them out to Impact Wrestling next week to face Mickie James. Mickie has to prove herself according to Hamada, then let her be the one in control. She is willing to test herself against any woman on this planet and prove that this division can stand against any competition regardless of where they're from. So Mickie bringing heat back to the storyline as Kurt Angle comes down to the ring. Now the commentators of course talk about how he, as it says on screen, addressed the elephant in the room last week. Kurt takes a microphone and he's much calmer this week. He's going to keep it short and talks about the dressing down that he got after broaching this subject last week. But he isn't here to apologise, to back down and to tell people to forget about it because the cat's out the bag. Now of course, Kurt's call out to CM Punk failed because that guy decided he didn't need to come to work again. Angle says he could get fired up. He could try and use his words to encourage CM Punk to come to him again. However, he's got a better idea. CM Punk doesn't want to come to Kurt. He doesn't want to come to see these fans. Then Kurt is going to take a trip to Chicago this week and he is going to go to CM Punk. Whatever happens, Kurt Angle has vowed, having been put through hell for 4 months when he was unable to compete and for the year before that as well. CM Punk has done so much to torment this man, and now when Kurt's back and cleared to be able to get that revenge, CM Punk has decided that he doesn't want to be here. Kurt simply isn't going to let that happen after what he's had to endure, and we see that next week, or this week, he is going to find CM Punk, but we will of course see Kurt Angle's little trip to Chicago on next week's episode. After the entrances of Madison Rayne and Tara and their opponents, Alyssa Flash and Sara Del Rey sit at the top of the ramp. They've taken 2 steel chairs. They want the best view in the house for the debut of Madison Rayne and Tara, who win in 4 minutes and 45 over DNR when Madison Rayne pins Roxy with a reverse STO. Now, very encouraging performances from... Wait... Oh, I did it on eye candy, so yeah, that does boost it up. But Tara with a 69, Madison Rayne with a 72. We give the crowd a breather, and most importantly, put over this new team, Madison Rayne and Tara. This may be their first match, but they look like a very well-oiled unit in the ring. They celebrate their victory with an eye on Alyssa Flash and Sara Del Rey, who the commentators say must have been impressed with what they just saw from the new team. However, when the number 1 contenders reach the top of the ramp, Sara Del Rey and Alyssa Flash don't seem all that impressed. They stay in their seats. They don't even stand up to go face to face with Madison Rayne and Tara. This annoys Madison Rayne and Tara, who have a hell of a lot to say to the Knockouts Tag Team Champions before storming off. They seemingly not getting the respect that they feel they deserve from Alyssa Flash and Sara Del Rey. But of course, with a team as good as that, you're going to have to do more than just beat Daphne and Roxy to impress them. We then go into the back where Kurt Angle has found Samoa Joe in the locker room and he wants to know the address of CM Punk. He wants to pay him a visit and he wants that information from Joe. Joe simply looks at Kurt Angle, who says as much as anybody, Joe should want Punk to be made accountable for his actions. So trying to appeal to the side of Joe, who might feel that he's been abandoned by CM Punk's walkout. Joe simply laughs at this suggestion and heads off in the opposite direction. Annoyed, Kurt Angle leaves the locker room and sees Colt Cabana, who is still trying to hype up El Generico before he heads out for the main event. Angle asks Colt if he has any details on CM Punk's current whereabouts. Colt shakes his head, saying he hasn't spoke to that guy in a long time, but it is time for our main event. Now again losing heat, but this is more of a little skit that sets up, again, the stuff next week. Everybody improvising well though, so very happy with that as we go into the main event. Now of course we've got the main event segment after this, but These two doing well. El Generico with just a 65, where Roderick Strong puts in a fantastic 82. Good chemistry lifts the match to a 74, and we get the crowd buzzing. I'm assuming I set this as steal the show. Yeah, so a really good match. But it is Nick and Matt Jackson getting involved. They take out Colt Cabana at ringside. This then distracts El Generico, and Roderick Strong can hit a double knee gutbuster and pin El Generico. So now we're talking about a man who was undefeated, had the best record in the company from the months of January, February, March and April. He has now lost 3 of the last 4 matches that he has competed in, and you can see why his spirit has been broken. And this segment that follows actually pushes forward 2 storylines. Roderick Strong and the Young Bucks are celebrating Strong's victory. Again, Strong has been on a really good run since joining up with the Young Bucks, and less so Steen and London. He essentially escaped defeat thanks to them. As they head up the ramp to celebrate, they are greeted by a jubilant Kevin Steen and Paul London. Now back on his feet, Cabana returns to check on El Generico, who is sat in the corner staring off into the distance. He is a defeated man. Colt Cabana begins to get frustrated as he's again trying to get through to Generico, but nothing's working. He puts his hands on his hips, he's shaking his head, he's almost in complete loss as to what to do next. He then drags Generico back to his feet and physically turns El Generico's head to look at those 5 men on the top of the stage celebrating. Cabana asks, "Are you going to let them do this? Are you going to let them win? We know that with the power of all 5 of them, the Young Bucks are going to be in that match at Slammiversary, and then it's 4 of them against 4 of the guys. That makes them the favourites." On the stage, Steen really goes over the top with this. We're literally going for them, pointing and laughing at El Generico and Colt Cabana. Cabana says that if we can't fight back right now, then maybe you don't belong here anymore, and maybe I don't either. Cabana then turns to leave, perhaps giving up on El Generico, but Generico grabs him and tells him to stop. They will fight, and they will fight for their shot at Slammiversary next week, but they'll be in a match that also features the Kings of Wrestling and the Briscoes, so it's certainly not going to be easy for El Generico and Colt Cabana, despite them now agreeing to compete in that match. Returning from the final break of the show, Maria has summoned the Impact Wrestling cameras to follow her, who was supposed to be going to the ring for Paul Heyman calling out Jeff Hardy, and she approaches Kurt Angle in the back. Maria tells Kurt Angle that with Jay having worked with Punk a couple of months ago, they have the information that Kurt needs, and Angle wonders why she in particular is offering up this information. Maria asks if Kurt saw what Joe did to Jay at the pay-per-view and last week. Jay Lethal might not be willing to stand up to Samoa Joe, but if Maria can give this information and piss off both Punk and Samoa Joe, then she's pretty happy to do that. However, she does also want something from Kurt. Slammiversary is coming up, and she wants her husband to be somewhere on that card in a marquee match. Therefore, she challenges Kurt Angle to face Jay Lethal in the main event next week, giving Jay the opportunity to make it undeniable that he deserves a shot at the big time. Kurt says that next week is going to be a busy week for him. He's got a trip to Chicago in the next few days, but given what Maria's done for him, he is more than willing to face Jay Lethal next week. So Kurt Angle back in action on next week's show, and it seems like we're also going to see what happens when he pays a visit to the hometown of CM Punk. We then get Paul Heyman coming down to the ring in a fantastic segment to end the show. Paul says that he is here to issue the ultimatum to Jeff Hardy regarding the main event of Slammiversary. Now, I've not peppered segments throughout the show or anything, but we will have been mentioning the commentators, nobody's seen Jeff Hardy, etc. throughout the night, so it's not really got its own segment, but of course it's something that has been happening. Heyman then hypes up the fact that Brock Lesnar will challenge for the Impact World Championship at that show. It just isn't clear who he will be facing. Now, Heyman says that he personally hasn't heard or seen from Jeff Hardy all day, and by his watch he has about 5 minutes to show his face, or Impact Wrestling will be forced to arrange the collection of the Impact World Championship to be retrieved from Jeff Hardy's home. Now, assuming that Jeff isn't here, Paul pulls out his BlackBerry to see if he's had any messages. He pulls out his iPhone from his other pocket and he's still not had any messages. It appears that nobody has heard from Jeff Hardy, and that means, as far as he's concerned, the Impact World Championship will be vacated as this show goes off the air. With that in mind, he has his own personal proposal for Slammiversary. Now, of course, this is just really hamming it up, egging everyone on to believe that Jeff Hardy may not be here, hopefully to create a pop when the music of our world champion hits. Jeff Hardy comes down to the ring, grabs the microphone and says, no, this isn't how it's going to go down, Paul. He will see Brock Lesnar at Slammiversary, but he doesn't want to have to wait until then. He wants Brock face to face before then. This is far from the foregone conclusion that they think it is. Jeff Hardy, of course, will have plenty of time to go more into detail and to get more off his chest, but for now, the end of the show is simply us putting over that Jeff Hardy very much is here, but also the late breaking news that the Icon Sting will return on next week's Impact Wrestling. It's an 84, which is a decent rating for the show, to be fair. Happy with that, considering our main event wasn't that good, and the in-ring action is pretty much taking a backseat at the minute to those big storylines, and that's just kind of how it is when we build into these big pay-per-views. Angles take precedence over the matches, but we are putting together a fantastic show for Slammiversary. We'll just do Evolve Wrestling now before ending this episode. And we begin with a recap of Rocky Romero appearing last week to help Homicide to defeat Kenny Omega. Homicide and Rocky Romero then promote tonight's main event, Kenny Omega versus Rocky Romero, wasting no time going into that match. Rocky doing well with that script is good to see. The crowd were turned off by having a match outside the pre-show with wrestlers they don't have investment in, but because I booked this as an eye candy, we still managed to get a 42. Rosita manages to evade the outside involvement of Angelina Love to defeat Velvet Sky with an Hurricane Runner, overcoming the odds as the underdog that she is. I was going to compare it to Rey Mysterio then, but that might be going a little bit too far. Rosita then celebrates. Her and Sarita are both through to the Evolve title match at Slammiversary. However, after the match, Angelina Love jumps Rosita from behind. Angelina Love also wants to be in that match, and that's why she attacked her. She also beat her last week on Impact Wrestling. The Bravado brothers then complain in the back. They were scheduled to be El Generico and Colt Cabana's replacements in the qualifying match, and now they hear that they're bumped from that show. They feel that they deserve to be treated better. They're going to face the Motor City Machine Guns later on, two men who are in that King of the Mountain match at Slammiversary, and they're going to prove why they deserve a shot at the tag team titles. We then get Roderick Strong and the Young Bucks coming out. They call out D'Angelo De Niro. De Niro's looking for a new challenger. The Bucks are going to be in the tag team title match at Slammiversary according to Strong, so why not, on that Evolve special pre-show, why doesn't D'Angelo De Niro put his title up against Roderick Strong? De Niro says that it's been a good few months since he last saw Roderick Strong here, and from the last time that Strong was on Evolve Wrestling, things weren't going so well for him. He says it's cute that he's found the Young Bucks to help him to victory when he clearly isn't good enough on his own, but how about he proves himself next week one-on-one with Kenny King? And De Niro says that if Nick and Matt are going to be at ringside, then so is he with his Evolve Championship. Not that good of a segment due to a couple of the guys not improvising well, but kind of throwing out there a new challenger to D'Angelo De Niro. Not much build up to it, but it's literally just having somebody who's been prominently featured on Impact Wrestling answering that call out from D'Angelo De Niro previously. Mickie James is in action tonight, and like tonight, she has to be ready for anything next week. The Motor City Machine Guns then soundly defeat the Bravado brothers with a Made in Detroit, continuing to build momentum towards Slammiversary. Kenny is ready to fight Rocky Romero later tonight. He's been called soft by Homicide, but it took somebody else for Homicide to defeat him. So what does that say about that guy? Mickie James then squashes Lana Kinnear in 2 minutes with a Mick kick. I really think I need to change her finisher to the Mickey DDT, because the clips that I've got of Mickey, she pretty much always botches the Mick kick, so I might change that before we go into the Slammiversary show. Mickey stands tall. She's ready for next week, quite simply. Kenny King also talks about his match next week against Roderick Strong. He's been on a good run this year himself, and he doesn't think that just because Strong's on the big televised show, he should be able to come down and take that shot. King wants to be on Slammiversary, and he's ready to prove himself next week, etc. Rhett Titus, then joined by Larry Sweeney, it says, comes in and cuts him off. He asks if there's an issue between Rhett Titus and Kenny King. We, of course, have split up the tag team, but we didn't really have any big dramatic moment between them. It was just Kenny wanting to go off and do his own thing. Kenny then sort of fired some shots at Rhett Titus last week, so he's just wondering if things are okay between them, and obviously setting things up there for the future. Kenny Omega then defeats Rocky Romero in the main event, just under 9 minutes. It's not that good of a match, but Kenny putting in, well, it's an okay performance and gaining heat to the storyline. Homicide runs in when Kenny appears to be close to sealing the victory, saving face for Rocky Romero, but either way, whether by pinfall or in this case the DQ, Kenny would have been the winner is essentially what we're saying. Homicide and Rocky Romero then attack Kenny Omega. Kenny King running down to make the save because he has been attacked in the past by those guys, only for Roderick Strong, Nick Jackson and Matt Jackson to opportunistically come out and try and take a little piece out of Kenny King before next week. D'Angelo Dinero, however, runs down Kenny, and D'Angelo are able to then clear the ring and stand tall despite being outnumbered, perhaps with the use of weapons or whatever it is. But there is Evolve Wrestling for this week, a 54, not fantastic. And I was going to say that after Slammiversary, we'll be transitioning Evolve Wrestling into something a little bit different, but I'm not booking after Slammiversary. So I will explain what the plans were, but never will be for Evolve Wrestling in the future. But yeah, I've kind of started to shape its own roster, so Kenny King, Kenny Omega, people like that, Homicide even and Rocky Romero. We are starting to build it as its own roster, but I did want it to stand alone as its own brand in the future, but that probably would have been after Bound for Glory, I think. So yeah, I'll talk more about that when we do go into that sort of future plans video that'll be after Slammiversary. Is that now 200 shows that we've booked maybe? I will actually check into that because I don't ever look into the user settings really. In fact, I don't know where to find the user settings. I'm pretty sure you used to be able to click something around here and it'd show you like your user information, but it doesn't seem like, oh there we go. We go here into the user stats. Now it's 242 shows I've booked, so is that the magic number to gain another user stat? I literally don't think I've ever added a user talent, although I must have. Will give me one more creativity for the last couple of weeks of the save, but there we are. That is Impact Wrestling and Evolve Wrestling for this week. 2 more weeks of build to go. Fantastic reviews for Impact Wrestling, lukewarm for Evolve, but overall things are going very, very well. Slammiversary just around the corner, and we've got Jeff Hardy back now. We've got Kurt Angle looking for CM Punk next week, so lots going down on next week's show that you will hopefully join me for. Nonetheless, thank you for watching this one, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.